Hello, Frank. How you doing?
Tim, hello. Fine, thank you
Good.
very much.
Right, before we start, I'm going to just introduce things,
Mhm.
and then I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm Tim Hughes. I'm the co-founder of Digital Leadership Associates. I'm the author of the book Social Selling: Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers. With me today, I've got Frank Bennett, who's actually written far more books than I have. And what we're going to talk about is how you can go from nothing to something, not necessarily in a short space of time, and why that's relevant. Having a personal brand while doing stuff online is all very relevant, especially when you get hair the same color that Frank and I've got, and why that's important for job searches and things like that. So, Frank, welcome.
Thank you very much. I've been looking forward to this. I've just had a
So
week.
have I.
Yeah, I've been looking at a week's vacation, time to think about and contemplate speaking with you. Of course, we've had a conversation before and we've met before. And
Yes.
it's a very strange coincidence, actually, I found out today in preparing for this talk, Tim. You were blogging. I think you were blogging back in 2014. Your first blog was on the 25th of February 2014. I've looked you up. And I tell you why I looked you up, only out of interest, because I wrote a blog on April the 28th, 2015, talking about social selling.
Yeah.
And I said, if you want to know more, go visit a social selling expert. And I pointed to your blog.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, well, you've been around a long time. Your reputation, it's been established for a long time.
Yes, and I'm starting to do things. I've got, like, this week I've got about 3 podcasts with Australia, so I seem to have gone all the way around the world.
Mm-hmm.
But before we start, the first thing to do is we need to get everybody to know where that people can find you.
Right.
I always do this at the beginning and do this at the end because it's important. Your Twitter, your LinkedIn. What, as the Americans say, what are your coordinates?
Right. So the best way to find me is to go to my website,
right?
frankbennett.co.uk,
okay.
Or even simpler, just put Frank Bennett in your Google search, and you'll find me on the page 1 of the results page.
Okay, that's a very confident thing to say.
It is. It is a confident thing to say.
Okay.
But I've been there for a very long time, so I have a high level of confidence that should that search be made, that you'll find me. But from my website, you'll be able to link to both my LinkedIn and to my Twitter, and my Twitter name is FB Foxtrot Brother on Cloud.
Right. Okay. So, Frank, tell us your story.
The story.
Keep it short, but because we'll pick things out of it, and key thing is to pick the. It's all about being educational and people learning. So keep it short, but we'll pick things out later on in terms of the things that you learned and the mistakes you've made, and because we don't want other people making those mistakes. We will make them, but they're not going to.
Long career in IT, 35 years. So I started in IT with only 5 companies to work for in the world, mainframes, ICL. I've had 2 periods of self-employment. One was 2002, 2004, just after the dot-com crash. I was part of a dot-com, like many. They turned from boom to bang to dust. And more recently, and I'm currently self-employed and have been self-employed since 2008. And there were some experiences along the way that kind of introduced me into what I feel is now my natural fit for my career, and indeed led me into understanding the importance of social selling and indeed building a personal brand. And I've had to reach out to a whole lot of people, including yourself, to understand how I do that. And by the way, I've still got L plates on.
I think we all have. I'm not the one with all the, I don't think any of us have all the big ideas. And that's one of the things for me that keeps it fresh. You're constantly learning. I've just come in from a lunch in London, and I'm there basically reading articles on the train on the way home. It's the only way that you can stay up to date. Every day is a school day.
Absolutely. I'm an avid reader like you, Tim. I mean, I think it's a constant learning process. Meeting different people as well who give you different perspectives on how they are promoting themselves online and offline. And we must have the conversation about both, because I do a lot of offline networking as well. And we'll talk later on about some of the people that have been influential in terms of shaping not only my thinking, but my actions as well.
Okay, so tell us your story. So how did you get where you are today? You've written
Well,
8 books. You've for people like Microsoft and Google. You've been involved in a number of organisations. How did that all happen? I mean, no one can be an overnight sensation, can they?
and I'm not sure I am an overnight sensation either. But here's the thing. So having had a corporate career and carrying around a business card with a big important name on it, I've worked in big important companies, it opens doors. When you're on your own, you have to forge your own identity out there, and your business card doesn't carry any weight. So you have to start thinking about, well, how am I going to win and influence friends and get through those doors that I used to be able to get through before just because I had a business card with a fancy name on it. So since I've done this twice, first time, as I said, through 2002, 2004, when there wasn't much in the way of social media going on, really, that was quite difficult. Very much relied on my network in LinkedIn and getting on the phone. 2008 to current day, social selling, and there's been a lot of social channels made available. I've had to learn how to use those to win and influence friends, essentially, and build a network of people that can help me get into places where I can look for business. Along the way, by the way, Tim, I've also done some other things as well. Not only building my social graph, as I think I hear this expression, I'm sure you're better placed to explain what a social graph is than I, but through building contacts. This is a laborious and time-consuming process. I don't have a lot of contacts. I have about 650 contacts in LinkedIn, and you can see the number of followers I have on Twitter. And indeed, it's not a large number. However, it's past the threshold, which I understand you need to have some sort of credibility. But the thing is, I go after quality, not quantity. And I'm different in that regard to some other people that are in my network. So the whole point of really our conversation, I want to share some experience in terms of what I've learned along the way from building a website, having to blog. I've currently blogged 81 articles on my website about cloud computing and other subjects that interest me. I have to keep my tweet refreshed. Some days I'm more busy than others. Typically, I tweet once or twice a day. Some days I may be very busy if it's a big news and event day. I've written books, as you know, as an author yourself. Great stuff. You don't necessarily make money, but you do get to some places you wouldn't get otherwise. And it is the most fantastic calling card as a consultant.
Yes.
So,
yeah, I'm not sure that I saw someone was writing up their CV the other day, and I said, I'm not sure I need one anymore. Maybe I'm being arrogant, but I keep going with my book, don't I?
And then I came into contact with people that, and you know these people, Thomas Power, for example,
yes,
who talked about personal brand. And then I started reading about personal brand. And actually one company that I came into contact with, Artesian, I don't know if you know them, a social selling company, and know Andrew Yates and the senior management team there. They helped me explore more the whole idea of social selling and the importance of how you build your influence. Your eminence is a word which I heard from an IBM exec once, how you become eminent in yourself in terms of your profession and your expertise and how you promote that. So building a personal brand was something new to me, and it's something which I've strived to do. And it's a continuing thing, by the way. When people say to me, Frank, what do you do? I tend to say, well, I could have a conversation as we're having now, but let me do two things. One, I would say to them, go to my website, read what I write about, see if you like the way I write and the things that I write about interest you. And secondly, go to my Twitter feed to see what I tweet there is of interest too. Then we're beginning to get to know each other. And I sometimes use that as a deflection, because sometimes people come to you and frankly, they're not very interesting to you, but it's a way to test their interest and whether or not you have any compatibility and mutual interest. It's qualification, as you say. In terms of my offline, which I think is quite important to talk about as well, I've done some things. I'm a member of the IOD, an important network.
Institute of Directors.
Institute of Directors, exactly. It provides an important network, plus there's some wonderful publications that they produce. Last year, I was nominated a Fellow of the Royal Society of Arts, Manufacturing and Commerce, a network of people, 29,000 people around the world who are idea agents, change agents, and they too produce some really great publications as well. I did the FT Non-Exec Professional Diploma in 2015, only one of 600 people in the world to have that qualification today. That again introduces me to an alumni of people who are operating as NED and board advisors. They too have great networking opportunities with Ernst & Young and KPMG. So these are the offline networks in which I circulate, which also help bolster my personal brand, because I'm meeting people that I wouldn't necessarily meet online. And there are so many people to meet online.
And I think it's important to say to people that you know, when we talk about personal branding, it's not 100% moving online. You know, if there's offline things that are working for you, then keep with them. You know, I saw a question on LinkedIn today, where supposedly people are saying if you move to social selling, you might as well throw your phone away because you do everything through social. And I certainly don't advocate that. And you still need to use email and phone and do all the things that work.
Yeah, and I think the social channels help you out. Well, first of all, helps you to get to know those people that might be of interest to you, and it aids you to do that. And LinkedIn aids you to do that. But once you've entered into some sort of initial dialogue, just to test their appetite to want to talk to you and whether or not you have any shared interest, then you still need the skill of being able to pick up the phone and have a conversation and be articulate in that conversation and to the point as well.
I agree. I mean, it's interesting what you say about. Websites generally are seen as being a reflection of what you do. It's kind of like you're nowadays an online business card. But it's interesting you say that you send people to your Twitter because it reflects who you are and what you do. And I'm a great believer about that. My Twitter feed is an extension of me. It's what I'm interested in. And I just happen to be really lucky that other people seem to be interested in the same things that I'm interested in. And it's a kind of a filter. I mean, you shouldn't actually do this and say, if I like it, then other people will, because someone was talking to me the other day about doing some sort of company event, and I was going, no, it's okay, oh, this will be great, and I'm thinking that sounds awful, but and because they're an extrovert and I'm actually an introvert, but that your all of your social should be a reflection of you. And that's one of the things where I see certain people who don't get social is that they try and be something they're not, or they try and post things that and they don't, and I've seen someone recently who came off Twitter, made a big public thing about it, and it's like, well, you never really got it because you didn't understand it was an extension of yourself.
And it's very interesting you say that, because for a long time, my Twitter was quite pure in terms of keeping the personal out of it and keeping it very business focused. And then I learned, actually, both from listening to other people and seeing their Twitter feeds, when you introduce an element of personal, it comes alive a bit more. So I started tweeting about a variety of things, not just cloud computing. I speak about wearable technology, health, fitness, and I'm a keen cyclist as well. And actually, one of my most popular tweets, in some ways this annoys me, I have to say, I found a new product, a collapsible helmet.
Okay.
It's a bugbear for cyclists if your helmet, where do you put it? It doesn't come on your rucksack, can't go on your belt. So I found an article about a development, a collapsible helmet, tweeted that, and it was a massive success.
Right. And that's important, because what it does is it could introduce you as a person who's an expert in cloud into other audiences or into other networks that you may not have actually got into. It's the kind of the Heineken effect, getting to parts that other beers cannot reach. And that's an important thing, because you can end up talking to there's nothing wrong with talking to the same people. I've got a great community, but I do try and reach into different others because I'm trying to amplify the message that I'm getting out.
Yeah, indeed. And I retweet, I quote, I DM as well. These are all new techniques that I'm learning. I'm by no means expert at them. I'm trying them out and I'm having some success. I read your book. It's illuminated me in terms of some ways in which I'm not using social media effectively, and I'm getting better. As I say, I very much have L plates on.
So what things do you've written 8 books?
I have.
So how did you? So if I'm an exec and I'm in an organization and I'm thinking, there's a lot of jobs going at the moment. What things should I be thinking about doing because I kind of need to be doing it now before I get that tap on the shoulder, don't I?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not actually looking for a job at the moment. I'm self-employed, and yes. I have helped place some people in jobs, by the way, who are in my network. One of the interesting things I would mention before I answer your question, Tim, and I'm not avoiding it, by the way, but I thought when I was building a personal brand that it would bring people to me. And sometimes it has, but actually what has really the effect has been in terms of I thought I might have influence with a whole number of people. What the real value of my network has been this, that I get to know so many people now, but I've gone for quality, not quantity, as I said before, that one of the things I find myself being is a bit of a broker. People come to me in one part of my network and say, Frank, you're quite specialist in cloud computing. You know a lot of people. By the way, I'll have a couple of roles which kind of help with that eminence in terms of asserting myself as an expert in cloud computing. I sit as the deputy chair of the Cloud Industry Forum in the UK. I was also director of Eurocloud UK for 3.5 years. So I'm kind of mixing it up with people who are at the core of cloud computing in the UK. So they come to me and they say, Frank, you know a lot of people in your network. I need to know something about this, or I have an idea. Who should I share it with? And I found that's an interesting thing, actually. It's a kind of an effect which I did not expect as a result of building my social presence, my social network, and looking to develop my own personal brand. So I've become a bit of a broker, which I didn't expect. But in terms of preparing for a job, absolutely, go to your LinkedIn profile, make sure it's top class, get some recommendations. I'm not fond, I don't know about you, Tim, I'm not fond of the endorsements.
No, so the endorsements for the subjects are really what recruiters use to basically search. So if you are in a job search, you do need to sort that out. Now, what happens is that LinkedIn has an algorithm that, based on what you're saying and what it kind of comes up with a number of suggestions. Mm-hmm. And what you need to do is actually make sure that they're the ones that you want, or the ones that you want to be. So, for example, 3 years ago, when I was at Oracle, I had things like cloud and SaaS and all of the things that you were expected to have at Oracle. And I thought, no, actually, I want to run my own social media company. So I actually changed all my ones to social listening and social influence or something like that. And they're the ones that are now at the top. So if you're not looking for a job from a recruiter, then kind of park it. But it is something that, I think a lot of people, even though you're happy in your job, you never know when you're going to get that phone call about being the managing director of Google. And, you need to take that call.
Interesting. So I'm actually going to pay attention to this now, based on what you said, because
but the recommendations are critical. I think some recruiter told me recently, I think you have to, if a recruiter goes to your LinkedIn profile and you've not got at least 5, and then when I mean 5, they're not your mate and your mate's done one back. They're 5 ones from customers or bosses or whatever. They kind of won't talk to you. Because a recruiter not only has to place you, but I think quite often they get a payment if you stick for 6 months.
Okay.
So it's about the placement, and then the endorsements are really about making sure that they get that payment at the end of the 6 months, rather than just throwing people at you. And that's so it's something you need to have at least, I would say, at least 7 good ones.
Okay, that's something else I have to tend to. Now, tell me about the social selling index, which I've done. Is that visible? It's visible to me, clearly. Is it visible to anyone else?
It's only for people watching, if you go to LinkedIn or go to Google and just type in the LinkedIn Social Selling Index, or SSI, it will give you a URL where you can go to and find your own SSI. It's a measurement from 0 to 100 based on your activity on LinkedIn, and there's 4 particular criteria that they measure. And basically, if you're over 50, you kind of have a pulse. Right. I'm something like 85 or something. The only way that I could get higher really is if I don't use it for recruitment. And if I use it for recruitment, I could get into the 90s, but I don't currently. But you can only see your score. I can't see your score.
No, but would you share it?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I mean, what I would say is not to get too hung up about it. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you think about an Olympic athlete, when they get on the starting blocks at the Rio Olympics, they know where they're going to finish. Yeah, because they've got up at 5 o'clock in the morning. They've eaten the right food. They've trained. They've slept in a special oxygen tank. They've got up in the morning. They've gone out running in the rain. They've done all the things that they know that they need to get the gold medal at the Olympics. If you're doing all the right things, your SSI looks after itself. But I do know recruiters that say that they would look for an SSI score of plus 60 on a CV. Okay.
So are you suggesting you put your SSI score on a CV, just for clarification?
If it's above 60, I would, yes.
Oh, that's an interesting
but don't forget that a CV is one of those things where less is more. The more you put on it, the more you leave yourself open to questions. Yeah. So if you put your SSI score and then goes, oh, that's interesting, what is it? And you don't know, or you don't know what social selling is, you've made a rod for your own back.
Right. So just before we move on from that,
Yes.
I at one time got very focused on clout.
Yes.
So unless you have a clout score of 60, no one wants to talk to you. They won't hire you. You might just throw yourself in the hole and cover yourself up. You're finished.
Okay.
And I think I checked the other day. My clout score's currently sitting at 48. So what?
Okay.
Has the heat gone off, clout? I haven't heard much more about it.
Clout is clout's gone out of fashion. I think people still use it, and the thing about clout is there's only really two measurements around social presence that people can get easy access to without buying a tool like Brandwatch or Spreadfast or something like that. And therefore it's an easy thing. You just go to clout.com, put your register in it, and it gives you a value. To get a clout of over 60, you've got to be on every single social network, and you've got to open it up to the public. And for some people, that's kind of like a step too far.
I found it hard work. And
yes, it is. I mean, you on Twitter, for you've got to be tweeting 20 times a day. And on Facebook, I think you've got to be liking 20 things a day.
So we try to get
like, which is then kind of pointless.
Indeed, it can become annoyance as well to those that are in your stream. In terms of LinkedIn, how far? I go back maybe the last 15 years. I'm 35 years in the industry. 15 years. I mean, what I did 35 years ago, who cares? Obsolete, museum stuff. What's your recommendation in terms of your chronological existence?
Well, it's interesting because the fact that I think we both worked at ICL.
Well, yes, when I was a boy.
So one of the key things about LinkedIn is not necessarily about all of the Sales Navigator and that. It's about finding the connection with somebody. And you're probably of a similar age to me, where we were selling before kind of computers started, or there weren't personal computers.
Pretty much.
And you would go to sit in somebody's office, and it's like, well, so what do? You look around the room, and they've got pictures of Formula One or fly fishing, and immediately you've got to build some rapport. And you go, oh, you're into fly fishing? Oh, that's really interesting. And then you leave and you start reading up on fly fishing, but you become an expert on it because you're going through a sales process, and that's the connection you have. And what you're looking for is people to seek the connections on your social platform. So I had the marketing director, the CMO of Fujitsu, for example, came to me and said, I just got a LinkedIn message saying, do you remember the Silver Sword? Now, the Silver Sword is a pub which is just over the road of Coventry University. So I looked at his profile, and he went to Coventry University at the same time as me.
Okay.
So one of the things, one of the things that you can be doing is actually using it as a way of saying, right, I'm going to look in my accounts for everybody that went to the same university as me. Or, I worked at ICL. I'm going to look for all the people that worked at ICL and seeing if they're and using that as a way of creating that connection and having that engagement. So I wouldn't necessarily say stop at a particular time, although quite often what happens is if you've been in business, it looks like you've then been in a lot of jobs.
Indeed.
So
I mean, I get what you're saying, but there's a great amount of effort that you have to go to execute this well. And how many people in your experience, because you have much more experience than I do, put a lot of effort in, I think, compared to some. In your experience, how many people out of 10, 100, 1,000, whatever you choose, are prepared to go the extra mile here?
I think once you explain to people the importance of a personal brand, I think it's something. It's often seen as a tick box exercise, and we actually follow in Digital Leadership Associates. We do social selling training, and we quite often follow in after people have done LinkedIn training. And then quite often they sit there and say, well, we've done LinkedIn training. And it's like, no, we're going to teach you how to social sell, not how to use LinkedIn. And quite often what people have done is actually gone through this tick box exercise rather than actually seeing LinkedIn as a way of actually driving you inbound. and actually using it as a tool from a selling perspective. Let's forget the word social, but actually it should be used in your armory as a salesperson or as a marketeer to market your product or even yourself, because your personal brand can get you your next job.
Sure.
And it's, how long does it take? Well, if I invest half a day a quarter in, my Adam Gray, my business partner, and I get we get a piece of inbound through social every day. Now, how much, if we're getting a lead a day, how much time should we therefore invest in a lead generating tool that gives us a lead a day? Because that's better than cold calling.
Absolutely.
If you're as an enterprise salesperson, you should be investing at least half a day a quarter updating your profile, and then using it. My LinkedIn is open all the time, and I'm in and out of it all the time. I'm looking at different things, and it's a proactive tool that you should be using as part of your sales everyday best practice. And you'll find at point when you get the inbound, you'll suddenly find this click, and you'll even it's one a week. It's one call. That's a week you got to make, and that's the key. And as an entrepreneur and a small business like we are, getting that inbound is we're not having to spend money. We don't spend money on marketing because you don't need to.
It's gold dust, isn't it? Absolutely.
Yeah. It's because you don't need to. You don't have to spend money on marketing because because you as a salesperson, because you've got the best selling tools available to you that we've ever had.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I probably wouldn't be needing to work today if I had all the tools I had available today when I started my selling career. I'd have been much more successful. I mean, it's very difficult to reach people then. I remember going down the library, looking through books and taking down names, addresses, and telephone numbers, cold calling and knocking on people's doors.
Yeah, when I started, the first 5 years of my selling career, I sold in public sector, and there was always these books that were these big thick books which had the finance director of every council in, and you'd go through and you'd ring them up and you'd never get through, even like 25 years ago. But that was the only way that you could actually find out who these people were.
Correct. Now, tell me about, so we've talked about LinkedIn, and I've got some polishing up to do based on what you've told me today. We were talking about recruiters as well, finding your next job. The fact that I've got a Twitter account and I've got some, I don't know, many hundreds of tweets, does that matter? Does that count?
I don't think the number of followers and the number of tweets don't matter. It's the engagement that you're getting from those followers, and it's the reach and the amplification, and the way that you use those. So I wrote an article probably 2 years now from a friend of mine who's getting 10 C-level meetings a week by using Twitter. At the time of writing, he had 450 followers. So it's not about the number of followers; it's about the way that you use it and your behaviour and the way that you work. Again, it's not necessarily the number of tweets. I mean, it's important for Paul is that he just doesn't look like a spammer. He's putting out interesting things. He's putting interesting content on his LinkedIn profile, and he actually had an HR director that said, "That's a really interesting infographic. Can you send me the report?" As soon as you're in a discussion, because you could say, "Well, I can send you the report. I'm over your way next Tuesday. Can I drop by?" Use your selling skills to do that. But that's he's putting out something where you're being different, saying something that other people aren't saying, having something that you want to be famous for. So you're famous for cloud. I don't do. Well, you may do Internet of Things and artificial intelligence, but you're known for cloud. And I decided I want to be known for social selling, and that's the key thing from a social selling perspective or personal brand stuff is, if I want to know about cloud, I go to Frank, and that's why you get that inbound.
Correct. So I've got a website. Does it matter to have a website if you're going to build a personal brand?
from a personal perspective, I mean, it depends. I wouldn't necessarily say from the beginning that you need to do that. The thing that the thing that a website does, it's kind of better for SEO.
Okay.
And it's better because you said at the beginning that you were first on Google, which is interesting. So the thing is that Google will look for LinkedIn is crap for SEO from a blogging perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I've got 50 blogs on LinkedIn since July, but that's to drive sales of my book. We now as a business are moving back to the website. The difficulty you have with a website is people have to find you.
Exactly.
But it's better for SEO, and an SEO is usually a 12-month game. But what Google will be looking for is connection between the particular keywords that somebody has put in. So, you know, I don't know what you tune for, but cloud expert or something like that. And then what you, if Google then finds that on your LinkedIn profile and on a blog and on some guest post somewhere connected to your URL, they'll probably go, this person is most probably a cloud expert, and present the answer.
Right. So I have to get some help in this area, by the way. This is not easy stuff to understand.
It's not, and I mean, I only know it because I get, you know, I know it's my job.
Of course.
So we advise people on how to do it, but it's not easy. And so from day one, if you want to build a personal brand, for me, you kind of probably need to be blogging on LinkedIn. And the reason for that is that there is a whole bunch of people on LinkedIn that are hungry for content. So it's very easy for people to come on a like or read your article or share it. And of course, you're immediately not just going through your network, but other people's networks as well. And that's where you're, from a personal brand perspective, that you're going to get that amplification. At some point, you do need to switch over to your own blog or your own website. But again, you then need to just work out how you're going to drive people there.
Interesting. So I've got 81 articles on my website. What you've just instructed me to do, and I'm going to do now, is take some of those articles pre-written and start putting them on my LinkedIn as a post.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I would do is move them one to the other, and then at the end of the article on LinkedIn, what I would write is, this originally appeared on my blog, and then put the URL to it. So if someone reads all the end to the end, you've got a call to action for them to actually go to the website, and then you've got a backlink, which is good for SEO.
Absolutely.
But the problem, as I say, is that if they're on a blog, people may not actually see them.
Indeed. And of course, the other thing, I mean, this is, again, learnings from people who are more learned than I in this regard, is if you do have a website, you have to make sure it's mobile friendly, because Google now promote mobile friendly websites over those that are not mobile friendly.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It has to be mobile friendly. I mean, you can get a website in WordPress or and run one of those up pretty quickly. So it's not like it's a big expense.
No, that's right. And I use WordPress. A WordPress theme myself is excellent, and the domain name frankbennett.co.uk, bit of publicity there. It was a few quid. It's a few pounds, and I've advised many people actually just to grab their URL for a few pounds before it's snapped up by somebody else. There are lots of John Smiths in the world. Yes,
and you know, I have a personal trainer, and he's just starting his own personal training company, and he's gone and immediately grabbed them all of the domains, and I recommend you do that. And he's gone and got an Instagram one and a Snapchat one. Now he's not going to post on Instagram and Snapchat. He's just going to grab them.
Exactly.
Because he said, I will need them in the future, and therefore, I need to kind of get them in the back pocket.
It becomes a digital asset, and it's, and in the case of my domain name, actually, it could survive me. My son is also Frank Bennett. Maybe it'll be part of the inheritance.
Maybe it is, yeah.
A bizarre thought. Anyway, hopefully I'll keep going forward.
So how did you get the option to basically write your 8 books? Because it's kind of a working theme, wasn't it? In terms of you've written for Microsoft and you've written for Google. So how did you get those gigs, or is that top secret?
No, it's not top secret at all. So the first book I wrote, I went to Microsoft partner briefing at TVP in Reading. And by the way, my history, I have a lot of time with Microsoft on a leadership team or a Microsoft ISV. So I'm familiar with these partner briefings. And normally you come out, you're pumped up, you've got a water bottle, pen, fist bumps in, car park, off you go to make some money. This particular meeting, they were launching what is now known as Office 365. At that time, it was Business Productivity Online Suite, ugly name, they changed it twice. And there's actually a riot in the room, actually. The partners weren't getting what Microsoft was saying at all. In fact, some stormed out. I'd never seen that before, and I thought something's going on here. Anyway, I was intrigued, and I decided to write a book, speculatively, I have to say, about with a publisher called Smart Questions. It was thinking of selling Microsoft Business Productivity Online. So it's a long title. Ask the Smart Questions. Anyways, I sent it to Microsoft. They liked it, actually. And then they asked me and commissioned me to write a book, not about BPOS. I'd already written it. By that time, they had reinvented it and called it Microsoft Online Services, and there was a subsequent reinvention to Office 365. So they commissioned me to write a book. It was distributed at the Worldwide Partner Conference. It was put into their Microsoft.com partner portal. I thought I'm onto something here. Just about that time, Google launched what was known as Google Apps, now G Suite. So I hiked over to Victoria and put the idea to them. And I was playing the two off against each other. You understand? They're rivals, and they still are. And they commissioned me to write a book as well about Google Apps. Similar theme, thinking of, I think it was using Google Apps at the time. I subsequently wrote another one specific for SMEs, going Google Apps. And they too put it in their Google Partner Portal as well. And so it's available to all of their partners around the world. So it started out, so I was doing nothing basically. I'd just come out of a business, a trade sale, and I had all this bunch of experience around building applications using Microsoft technologies. It was just a timing thing, nothing more than that. So I'm an author by accident.
Okay, but have you made any mistakes, and what would you say, if you had your time again, you probably wouldn't do? Or is there something where you went down a blind alley or something that in your, what would you, is there something you can share with people?
Yeah, I would say do write books if you're minded to do it. And I know a lot of people are minded to, but they never get off the pot and do it.
Do you think that you need to be writing blogs before you do the book, or do you just sit there and go, I'm going to write a book, and you do it?
Well, I was writing blogs back in 2003.
Okay, fine. I'm from the, you probably need to start writing before and doing, short form 500 words and then 1,000 words, and then saying, I was sitting down at the weekend and writing 6,000 words, which is, slightly different.
Absolutely. So yes, if you get some, as you say, short articles, blog, then write a book. But you need an idea and you need a publisher. Although you can self-publish, but that's hard work. So, but I think it does provide you. It gives you confidence as well to write, and you learn a writing style, and people will comment on your writing style. Some will like it, some won't. I mean, I'm sure you get some feedback yourself.
I guess some people don't like it at all, and other people love it. Yeah.
And you have to be a little bit brave, because you're going to face criticism as a writer, and so you need some bravery and some confidence to do this. So do write. So in terms of mistakes, I would say that one of the things which I've learned from as a consultant, a practitioner, advising some big companies, by the way, and they go to market with partners, is people don't do enough planning. So I use business model Canvas, if you know, it's part of business model generation. It's a well-known technique used throughout the world. So do more planning up front. You may have an idea, and the temptation is, once you have an idea, to rush in and do it. Think it through. So my social graph as it is, by the way, I was a LinkedIn user back in, I'll tell you when I joined LinkedIn, it was 24th of December 2003. I was among the first 80,000 users.
Wow.
Goodness knows what I was doing on LinkedIn.
You obviously had a spare 5 minutes.
It must have, or done my numbers and thought, what do I do next? But my social media has come together haphazardly, I have to say, Tim. I've looked to other people for advice. I've actually paid people to help me with this. So the mistake I think I made was that I did not organize myself up front, do enough reading, maybe because I don't think I started back in 2008 on this. So maybe there wasn't too much expertise around at that time. Your book wasn't available, for example. So I was maybe short of being able to meet and talk to people who could give me the guidance, which I think you need actually to do this well. Because I do see people making mistakes, and I see these as mistakes now, but I perhaps wouldn't before. Where, for example, they retweet stuff and they obviously haven't read what they've retweeted, for example. Classic. Or they use LinkedIn, they just send you this please can we connect on LinkedIn? Well, get lost. Why would I want to do that? I'm building a quality network. Quantity isn't important to me. So there are people making howlers out there, to be honest with you, mistakes here, which I now know are mistakes, but I'm not sure I would have known they were mistakes when I was starting out. Have I made an absolute, mess of anything so far? Thank goodness not.
And who is it that you would turn to in terms of, who's been your mentors? Who are the people that you respect online, or you'd say, right, yeah, these are the 3 people. If I'm starting out around this, who is it that I need to go? You need to go and see this person's Twitter.
Okay, so I will give you the names of 3 people. I will also add the name of another person. So I mentor a young gentleman called Frank Sullivan. He was working at Microsoft, and that's where I first met him. And he actually approached me and said, would you mentor me through and he's since built 2 digital startup businesses, which I've mentored him through, and is now still working in the industry in a full-time job, getting his next level of experience. I go to him. He's very good at tech. He's very good at digital. Now, in terms of the other 3 people, Thomas Power is someone who I've met. I know he lives in Farnham, not far from where I live. I've met his wife.
I know.
Penny Power, lovely lady as well. She's an expert in this field as well. Well worth talking to. Nat Schooler, who who's currently living in Spain. He and I are good friends. He lived just down the road before he moved to Spain, Hazelmere. So I've had many conversations with him about this. And the other person might be a name you don't know, actually, who I came across maybe 3 years ago, who I have much admiration for, actually. Big corporate career with IBM in marketing comms, now out at UK Cloud, formerly Skyscape, a chap called Bill Mew, M-E-W.
Okay, no.
Writes some excellent articles.
Okay.
And a real authority. And the other reason I know him, by the way, he's in the same field as me, cloud computing, but writes quality stuff.
Right.
Worth listening to. And it's the way he does it as well.
Okay. Okay. Fantastic. Is it so, Frank, time's up.
Yep.
Is there anything else that you wanted to share or you wanted to talk about? Or
yeah, don't be afraid to do this. I talk to people about spinning up their personal brand, and I've spoken to you about a project I have with personal trainers, and see the reluctance of personal trainers who need to promote themselves as online to attract clients. The reluctance of people to do this, and I don't understand why. I understand there are technical considerations here, but they can be overcome, and we offer a website, workoutwith.co.uk. You can go on for free and profile yourself and get some visibility. So I think my message would be brave. Don't get left behind on this.
Okay, fantastic. So where can people get hold of you again? Mention your website and your Twitter and your...
Indeed. So it's frankbennett.co.uk. My Twitter is FB on cloud. And from there, you'll always be able to find me.
Fantastic. Thank you, Frank, for your time today. And good luck. And I'll get the video up in about an hour.
Good. And we'll stay in contact anyway.
Yeah. Cheers, Frank. Thanks for today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.